There are moments in life when, in the middle of our busy routines, we suddenly pause and wonder, why is it that I've worked so hard, accomplished so many things, and yet inside I still feel an emptiness? That question does not come by accident. It is more like a gentle whisper from deep within, a reminder that a part of us has been waiting all along, longing to be heard, longing to be embraced. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychologist and psychoanalyst, once said that within every person lives an inner child. This is not a child of flesh and bone, but the most innocent and fragile part of us. It is tender, sometimes wounded, yet it also holds the purest spark of life and light. It is the part of your soul that once knew how to laugh freely, to cry without shame, and to believe with wonder that the world was beautiful. But as we grew older, we learned to hide. We began to wear masks, masks to be accepted, masks to protect ourselves from hurt, masks to prove we were strong. And the voice of the inner child grew quieter and quieter. We became absorbed in work, responsibilities and relationships, and in the process, we forgot that a part of us was still there, silently waiting. Have you ever felt this way? Smiling and talking with others, yet in the quiet of the night, hearing a faint call inside, as if someone deep within you was longing for your care? If you have, know this: you are not alone. So many of us have felt that same stirring, and Jung gave us the answer. Healing begins the moment we turn back and listen to the child within. Imagine a vast house with many rooms. Somewhere in that house, there's a forgotten room, the door closed for years, and inside, a child sits quietly, knees pulled to the chest, waiting. That child might be sad, might be angry, might be afraid, but still, their eyes are fixed on the door, hoping that one day you will return. And the moment you pause, the moment you choose to listen, the door begins to open. This journey is not an easy one. To meet the inner child, we must face the memories we've long tried to bury. Perhaps it is the tears of being abandoned, the fear of not being understood, or the loneliness of feeling unseen in a world that moves too fast. But within this journey lies a treasure, the chance to recover what was never truly lost: your innocence, your trust, and your capacity for love. Carl Jung called this process individuation, becoming fully yourself. And to walk that path, you must first return inward. Return to discover that you don't need to be perfect, you don't need to be strong all the time, and you don't need everyone's approval. You only need to embrace your inner child, and in that embrace, peace will quietly return. The world teaches us to look outward toward success, toward love, toward validation. But few ever teach us to look inward, to come home to ourselves. That is why this message today is not about analysis or theory, but a gentle invitation. Allow yourself to listen. Allow yourself to step into that forgotten room. And in the minutes ahead, we will walk together through the layers of old wounds, the masks we wear, the voice of the inner child, and the ways to embrace it with compassion. Think of this not as a lecture, but as a journey, a healing journey you do not have to walk alone. Because the truth is this: your inner child never disappeared. They are simply waiting for you to return. And when you're gentle enough to listen, you will realize that the emptiness you've carried all this time was never a void. It was a calling, a reminder, guiding you back home. As we grow older, life teaches us to be strong. Each of us carries our own lessons, our own wounds, and along the way, many of us come to believe that in order to be accepted, in order to be loved, we must change. We learn to hide our sadness, to bury our fears, and sometimes to hide our very selves. In psychology, Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist and psychoanalyst, called these hidden parts the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is simply what we have not yet had the courage to face. It might be the fear of abandonment from childhood, the sting of being unseen, or the anger we were never allowed to express. When we push these feelings down, they don't disappear. They lie quietly in the unconscious, waiting for the moment they will surface. You may have felt this in your own life. Sometimes you overreact to a small comment. Sometimes you feel sadness or anger that seems to come out of nowhere. In truth, it is the shadow speaking. It is the inner child knocking, asking to be heard. But as children, few of us were ever taught how to sit with our sadness. Instead, we learned to wear masks. The mask of strength, so no one would see our weakness. The mask of cheerfulness, so others would believe we were fine. The mask of perfection, so we could earn recognition and praise. The mask helped us survive. But over time, it pulled us farther and farther from who we really are. The inner child, who only ever wanted unconditional love, was left behind, hidden under layers of disguise. And as we grew older, as life demanded more of us, we began to feel exhausted. Because wearing a mask day after day is a heavy burden to carry. Have you ever felt that way? Smiling for the world, but at night, feeling so tired inside. Have you ever felt like you were playing a role in your own life, unsure of what was real and what was just an act? If so, gently remind yourself, you are not alone. So many people carry these masks, and like you, they are learning to take them off. Jung believed that the journey of healing begins when we dare to look at the shadow, because only when we admit to our fragility and our vulnerability can we touch our wholeness. The inner child doesn't need you to be perfect. It only needs you to sit down, to listen, and to whisper, I am here. I will not abandon you again. The mask once protected you, but it also kept you from your truth. To take it off is not to lose your protection. It is to find the courage to be real, to cry when you are hurt, to say no when your heart does not agree, to live with honesty instead of performance. And each time you live authentically, the inner child is healed, little by little. But here is something important. Removing the mask is not something that happens overnight. It is a slow unfolding. It is learning to trust yourself again, to forgive yourself for the years you have hidden, and to love yourself even in your imperfections. And perhaps as you peel away the masks, you will discover something else. The forgotten dreams you once carried. The dream of painting, the dream of music, the dream of writing, the dream of traveling to places that once filled your imagination. Dreams that were tucked away because someone told you they were impractical, or because life demanded you choose security over passion. These dreams never truly die. They wait quietly in the shadow, right alongside your inner child. And when you return to that child, when you offer them love instead of abandonment, those dreams can be brought back to life. The very wounds that forced you to wear the mask can become the doorway home, because when you finally dare to embrace your pain, the wound becomes the place where light enters. And so, in the next part of our journey, we will explore the moment when the inner child can no longer remain silent, when it begins to knock at the door of your soul. That moment is not a breakdown, it is a breakthrough. It is the sign that the time has come to return, to listen, and to begin again. And I will offer you a small but powerful invitation, a step of affirmation to help you truly begin this path back to yourself. There comes a moment on this journey when everything suddenly grows quiet, quieter than it has ever been before. And in that silence, you hear a faint sound. It is not loud, not overwhelming. It is like a gentle knock on the door of your soul. That is your inner child, finally speaking. It doesn't speak in clear words. It speaks in feelings. In the emptiness you sense even when surrounded by people. In the tears that fall without warning, for no reason you can explain. In the quiet loneliness that comes at night when the city grows still. These moments are not weakness. They are a call. A call to turn back, to recognize that it is time to listen. Carl Jung once said, "Inside every person lives a child who longs to be seen and to be loved." When that knock comes, it is a sign you can no longer ignore, because your inner child has been waiting for you for far too long. It doesn't scold you. It doesn't blame you. It only longs for you to return and whisper, "I'm here now." Have you ever noticed yourself falling into the same emotional loops, facing a familiar situation and reacting like a child, angry, afraid, or hurt? That is not immaturity. That is your inner child raising its voice, showing you that parts of you remain unhealed. And rather than suppressing or running away, this moment is your invitation to stop, to turn toward it, and to embrace it. Perhaps you have gone through years without realizing this, but now, as you sit here listening, it means you are ready. Ready to face that child. Ready to offer it an embrace. Ready to tell it that it will never be alone again. And right now, I want to invite you to do something simple but deeply important. Think of it as a marker, a promise to your soul and to that child within you. Write down these words as a comment. I choose myself. Or, if it feels right for you, write, I will never abandon my inner child again. This is more than a sentence. It is a declaration, a promise to the deepest part of you that from this moment forward, you will listen, you will be gentle, and you will love. Consider this a small ritual. By writing it down, you turn thought into action. You send a message out into the universe. I am ready to begin healing. And trust me, your inner child will feel it. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that child sitting there, eyes filled with quiet hope. When you write that affirmation, it is as if you are stepping forward, kneeling down and holding their small hand. You whisper, from this day on, we will walk together. This moment may bring tears, may soften your heart in ways you didn't expect. Don't hold it back. Let it flow. That is not weakness. It is proof of connection. And in that connection, a new door opens. A door that leads you toward the peace you have been searching for all along. The inner child doesn't need you to solve everything right away. It only needs your promise not to leave it behind again. And with that promise, spoken softly, you have already begun. From here, the journey will never be the same, because you're no longer walking alone. The child within you now has a place to rest, a hand to hold. And as you move forward, you will notice healing ripple outward, not just for yourself, but for everyone whose life touches yours. And in the chapters ahead, we will explore what it truly means to embrace that child, to nurture it, and to allow it to grow. You will see that silence is no longer something to fear. It becomes the very place where the soul finds its voice. And from that voice, a new strength will slowly, gently emerge. One that may just lead you back to the forgotten dreams you thought you had lost. Have you ever noticed that when you begin to turn inward, life itself starts to shift? The rush of the world softens. The constant noise of do more, be more, prove more grows quieter. And suddenly you can feel your own breath again, the steady rhythm of your heartbeat, the quiet calling of your soul. That right there is the very first step of healing, creating space for your soul to speak and for your inner child to finally feel safe. Healing is not about erasing the past. None of us can make what happened disappear. But we can choose how we carry it. We can hold it differently. Your inner child, even with all its scars, longs for something so simple: to be acknowledged, to be seen, to be loved without condition. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist and psychoanalyst, reminded us, one does not become whole by chasing the light, but by embracing the darkness. What he meant was this: when you turn back and hold your vulnerability with compassion, it stops holding you hostage. The very parts you once tried to hide become the doorway to your greatest strength. Think of a seed in your hand. That seed will never sprout under the harsh glare of the sun on dry soil. It needs the darkness of the earth, the nourishment of rain, the patience of time for its shell to crack open. In the same way, your loneliness, your hurt, your silence, they are not empty. They are the soil from which your soul will grow stronger if you let yourself trust the process. Healing begins with acceptance. Try this small practice. Close your eyes, place your hand on your heart, and whisper, "I accept what has happened. I will not deny it. I will not judge it. I allow it to be part of me, and I choose to love myself even with it." Just one simple sentence like that can send the deepest signal to your inner child. You are not abandoned anymore. To bring this alive, let me share with you 3 stories, 2 from everyday lives here in America and 1 from my own experience as a therapist. Example 1. The suburban mom who reclaimed her art. She grew up in the Midwest, a little girl who could spend hours lost in crayons and sketch pads. She dreamed of being an artist, of painting walls with color, of one day teaching others how to see beauty in the simplest things. But life told her to be practical. Her parents said art wouldn't pay the bills. She chose a safe degree, got married, raised children, and built the picture-perfect suburban life. From the outside, she had everything. But inside, she felt a quiet ache she could never explain. It wasn't depression, it was emptiness, the sound of a dream silenced too early. One day, during her healing journey, she picked up a paintbrush again. At first, her hand shook. The lines were awkward. But then, something miraculous happened. She started to paint with the freedom of the little girl she once was. She kept going, and eventually she began hosting art nights for other women in her community. She didn't just paint again, she became the artist and the teacher she once dreamed of being. Her healing came full circle the moment she told her inner child, "We can paint again." We never lost this example too. The corporate dad who picked up his guitar. He was a successful manager in New York City, always in meetings, always rushing, always on. But before the suits, before the long commutes, he was a teenager in a garage band, strumming his guitar until his fingers ached. He had once dreamed of writing songs that mattered, songs that carried his soul. Somewhere along the way, that dream was boxed up and left behind. When he finally began his healing work, he realized that his constant irritability, the anger at small things, the feeling of being trapped, those were the muffled cries of his inner child. So, he dusted off his old guitar. At first it felt silly, almost indulgent. But then, the music returned, and with it, a deep joy. No, he didn't become a rock star, but he began to live again. He started jamming with friends on weekends, writing songs just for himself. And with each chord, he felt a piece of his soul come home. Example 3. My experience as a therapist. I once worked with a man who, by all accounts, had it all. He was in his late 40s, successful, respected, with a wife, children, and financial security. But beneath the surface, he carried an emptiness so heavy it turned into quiet rage. He confessed that he often felt alone, even at the dinner table with his family. He didn't know why. As we worked together, it became clear he had been forced from a young age to abandon his dreams. Every time he tried to imagine a different path, he was told to be realistic. Don't waste time. Choose security. He complied. Outwardly, he succeeded. Inwardly, he locked away his passions. During one powerful session, I invited him to allow whatever was buried to finally speak. And for the first time in decades, he screamed. A raw, primal scream that shook the room. A sound that had been trapped inside him since childhood. That scream wasn't anger at his family or his life. It was the voice of his inner child finally being freed. Afterwards, something changed. He stopped blaming others. He stopped carrying bitterness toward the people who once silenced his dreams. He began to forgive, and more importantly, he began to forgive himself. He slowly started to reconnect with what he once loved: woodworking, travel, music. And in that return, he found peace. His life didn't crumble, it expanded. For the first time, he told me, "I feel whole." These stories show us something vital. Healing does not come from the outside world. It begins within. When you turn back, when you sit with your inner child and choose love, everything begins to shift. You stop chasing validation in every direction. You stop fearing abandonment. You start giving yourself what you always longed for: unconditional love. Try it tonight. Before bed, imagine sitting next to your younger self. Ask, "How are you feeling?" Listen carefully. The answer may surprise you. Don't rush to fix it. Don't force it to be cheerful. Just say, "I'm here." You're not alone anymore. That simple act can begin to rebuild trust with the deepest part of you. And as trust grows, harmony follows. You no longer feel torn between your adult responsibilities and your childhood emotions. They begin to integrate. And from that integration rises a strength you never imagined: the freedom to live authentically, the peace of being whole. Healing is not about becoming someone entirely new. It is about coming home to yourself, to the version of you who can hold both laughter and tears, light and shadow, success and failure. Like a lotus rising from the mud, you do not need to reject your pain. It is that very mud that makes your bloom radiant. And when you live from this place of wholeness, your healing ripples outward. You become gentler with yourself, and in turn, kinder with others. You stop abandoning those you love because you've learned not to abandon the child within you. And in this way, your personal healing becomes a gift to the world. There comes a moment on every healing journey when you realize that what once felt broken has, in its own quiet way, become the doorway to something extraordinary. The pain you thought was only pain becomes the soil for new life. The silence you once feared becomes the very place where your soul whispers truth. And the inner child you thought was lost forever becomes the guide leading you back home. We began this journey with a question: why do we feel a quiet emptiness even when life seems full? And step by step, we have discovered that this emptiness is not a curse but a calling. It is the voice of the child within, reminding us that there are dreams we have buried, parts of ourselves we have silenced, and longings we have ignored for too long. Healing begins the moment we turn back and say, "I will no longer abandon you." To bring this truth into focus, let me tell you a story. There was once a woman, let us call her Anna. As a child, Anna dreamed of being an artist. She could spend hours sketching, painting, coloring, losing herself in worlds of imagination. Her little hands believed that art was not just play, it was her soul speaking. But like many of us, she was told early on that dreams are not practical. Her parents, with their own fears of survival, insisted that art was a waste of time. They told her to choose a safer path, a career that would guarantee security. So Anna set aside her paintbrushes. She studied something sensible. She worked hard, built a career, raised a family, and checked all the boxes society had given her. From the outside, she was a success, but inside, something was always missing. No matter how many promotions she earned or how many responsibilities she fulfilled, a small voice remained, an ache she couldn't explain. That voice was her inner child, still sitting in the forgotten room of her soul, holding onto the dream of painting. For years, Anna ignored it because life was busy. But one day, in the quiet after her children had grown, she felt the pull too strongly to deny. She bought a set of brushes and paints. At first, her hand trembled. The colors felt foreign, almost forbidden. She laughed at herself. Wasn't this silly, painting again in her 40s? But as the brush touched the canvas, something broke open. The laughter turned to tears. And, through those tears, she felt her inner child's joy for the first time in decades. Anna began to paint regularly. She painted landscapes, portraits, abstract forms, everything she once dreamed of as a child. Eventually, she even began teaching small art classes for women in her community, helping others reconnect with their own forgotten creativity. She was no longer chasing recognition. She was no longer painting to be good enough. She was painting to be whole. Anna's story shows us something profound. Healing your inner child is not just about soothing old wounds. It is about reclaiming the dreams that once defined your soul. It is about picking up what you were told to put down. It is about living the life your younger self always imagined before the world taught you to be afraid. And maybe, just maybe, you have a dream like Anna's. A dream you once carried but set aside because it wasn't practical. Maybe you wanted to sing, to write, to travel, to dance, to build something with your hands, and maybe life pulled you away. But your inner child has not forgotten. That dream is still waiting, quietly knocking at your heart. This is the circle of healing. First, we hear the cry of the child within. Then, we learn to sit with its pain, to acknowledge the shadow. From there, we offer it compassion, safety, love. And finally, we return to the dreams the child once held, and we bring them back to life. You see, healing is not about becoming someone new. It is about becoming someone true. It is about peeling back the layers of masks, expectations, and fear, until what remains is the pure essence of who you have always been. And in that moment, life begins again. Not as a duty, not as a performance, but as a living, breathing expression of your soul. As you sit with these words, I want you to imagine your own circle closing. Picture yourself walking back into that forgotten room inside you, where your younger self has been waiting. Imagine picking up their hand, looking into their eyes, and saying, "I'm here now. We can dream again." What would change if you actually believed that? What would open in your life if you allowed that child's dream to live once more? For some, it may be creative expression, art, music, writing. For others, it may be relationships, allowing yourself to love in ways you once feared. And for many, it may be the simple act of resting, of laughing, of trusting, of being free. The child within you does not demand perfection. It does not ask you to succeed in the world's eyes. It only asks you to come back, to listen, to honor the truth you once knew before life told you otherwise. And here's the miracle. When you do, life itself expands. You stop living in fragments. You stop chasing approval. You stop fearing that something is missing, because nothing is missing anymore. You have returned to yourself. So, as we close this journey together, let me leave you with this. Your inner child is not just a memory. It is the most alive part of you, and the dreams you once abandoned are not lost. They are waiting for you to choose them again. Take a deep breath. Place your hand on your heart and whisper to yourself, I will not abandon my inner child. I will reclaim the dreams I once loved, and I will walk forward whole. This is the circle closing. This is you coming home. And if this message has touched you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel so we can continue walking this path of healing together. Here, we will keep exploring, keep remembering, and keep choosing to live with depth, with wholeness, with love. Because the truth is simple. You are not broken. You are becoming. And your inner child, your forgotten dreams, and your awakened soul are all waiting for you to say yes. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next journey.